Hi guys, it's Steph from IDRIVEACLASSIC and today I'm back in this amazing Bedford Bambi, all the way from 1988, which weirdly was the year that I was born. Now this amazing little camper van got offered to me and I thought, let's do something different because the weather's shining and we're in the area. So in today's video, we're going to follow a very similar format to normal, except we're going to spend a little bit more time inside because you're probably wondering at only 12 foot 2 inches long, just how we fit two people in here, a toilet, a cooker, a sink, and a mini fridge. But in today's video, I'm going to show you because I think you're going to absolutely love it. So we'll begin by having a look around the outside. This exciting Bedford Bambi that you see here today is the very first motorhome to ever be featured on IDRIVEACLASSIC, and I thought it was quite a fun one to feature because it's only 12 foot 2 inches long, and inside the bit where you'd camp, it's got a maximum headroom of 6 foot 2 inches in the kitchen and 5 foot 3.5 inches in the seating area. And the Bambi was a coach built motorhome marketed as the new motor caravan for the price of a used one, and to be honest, it seems a lot more pleasurable than pitching up a tent on a rainy day. And when we look inside, you're going to be seeing that this motorhome sports everything you'd want in a caravan, but it's got all the niceties of a motorhome. So the standard equipment on these included opening double glazed caravan windows, the rear stable door that you saw me demonstrate at the start of the video just now, and various things that you'll see when we explore the inside, including enamelled sink, 2-ring hobs, folding heat-resistant surfaces, and a hidden toilet storage facility, which, in my opinion, is just vile and something you'd forego for the privacy of using on-site toilet blocks. Because do you really want to go to toilet while you're sleeping? Absolutely not. Anyway, as well as that, you've got the 11-gallon water tank hidden away. You've got little nice touches like reading lamps, strip lights, and a roof light with a fly screen and furnishings, which were described in the book that you get with the car, with the motorhome even, as wipe clean and luxurious. Now, there was also a fridge supplied as standard, but this has been removed from this example, so it's not something I'm able to show you today, unfortunately. Now, as you'll see when we take a closer look inside, the cubby holes and storage solutions are well catered for as well, and everything kind of has a place without being crammed in. And in my opinion, this is actually quite genius. Now, the quality doesn't end at how the space is allocated inside, and the makers of the Bambi Auto Homes thought beyond this, and the quality of the build, and in fact, the vehicle kind of is really with it as well. So the body and floor are made from a vacuum bonded styrene sandwich type material, which in my opinion is a bit of a genius move because not only is it light and incredibly strong, but it provides a superb, especially for the era, level of insulation. So I know that motorhomes of today probably have something a little bit better. Now, you're probably wondering what this is based on, especially if you're watching from abroad, because as I mentioned, it is coach built. So the Bambi, as we see here today, was based on the Bedford Rascal, and this meant that quality wasn't just in the coach build, but in the mechanics as well. So this little home on wheels had all the technology afforded to the Bedford Rascal, including servo-assisted disc front brakes with drums to the rear, rack and pinion steering, independent front suspension, and leaf spring rear suspension, radial tyres, and a 5-speed box as standard, which is pretty good, isn't it? Now, the engine, like the gearbox, was a one-choice affair, and it was a 970cc water-cooled engine hidden under the front seats as per the Bedford Rascal setup, and it boasted a power-to-weight ratio which was allegedly as good as many one-ton class vehicles. Now, for me, going slightly off topic, the placement of the engine and everything under the seats is a bit of a massive turn off, because if you need to work on something or you just need to put the oil in, it is actually a little bit of a faff. But hey, we've only got essentially 12 foot of space to work with, so we've hardly got room to put it anywhere else. Now, the Bambi, like the Rascal, also has a turning circle of 8.8 metres and a 36-litre fuel tank, so got plenty to keep you going on there. Now, interestingly, the Bedford Bambi was sold as being British built, and quite a fuss was made around it on promotional literature, around it being, oh, this is a British vehicle, British. But it actually wasn't quite as simple as that, because the Rascal, sometimes known as the Vauxhall Rascal, which it was known as from 1990 because there was a bit of a rebadge from Bedford through to Vauxhall on these, was also known as the Suzuki supercarry in Japan, and it was also called the GME in other markets. And basically what happened was they decided to use the name which held most recognition and kudos and appeal in the buying location. So essentially it's pretty much the same, but it's known as different things elsewhere. And we've talked about badge engineering in a lot of other iDriveAClassic videos, so I won't dwell on that now. Now, however, despite it not being an entirely British design, as was implied in the promo material for the Bambi, it was British built, and it was built in Luton, England, in a factory opposite the Vauxhall factory, which was also in Luton as well. Now, if you're watching this video after looking up the Suzuki supercarry or wondering how it differs, the only thing that really differs in terms of the mechanics from the Bedford Rascal is the front grille and the lights. So the supercarry has two separate plastic headlight surrounds, and the Rascal, as the Bambi is based on, has a single full width grille with the Bedford written in the centre, which you will have seen on the walk round. And finally, you've also probably noticed on the outside of the van the Disney Bambi stickers, and these aren't an aftermarket fitment, and in fact the makers of the Bambi actually had to go to Disney and use the name under licence, which actually is not something I've heard Disney do with any other automotive manufacturer, but I'm sure there's somebody somewhere out there that could probably correct me if I'm wrong on this. Now, before we take a look inside the inside bit where you would camp and talk through the dash as well, I thought I would introduce the owner of this special little motorhome, Aaron. And if you recognise Aaron, that's because we have done videos before, because spoiler, he's one of my friends. We did the Vauxhall Nova last year, which, a little bit like this Bambi, was very well cared for and was also another nice vehicle from Aaron's collection. So if you haven't watched that and you want to see a little bit more of Aaron, so I'm sure many of you will do, make sure you check that out afterwards. So over to Aaron.
Hello, so my name's Aaron and I own this 1988 Bedford Bambi, affectionately known as Wilma since I bought it. That was not my naming, it was the previous owners. I originally wanted a camper van and I was looking at something like a Mazda Bongo, some sort of van that had been converted, and then I was looking through eBay and I found this come up for sale in Eastbourne, and I instantly fell in love with it because it suited everything I wanted in a vehicle. It was characterful, it was 80s mainly. And it was just ridiculous because I'm 6'2" and this is like a roller skate compared to me. So I made the mistake of going to view it, and that's where I went wrong, because as soon as I viewed it, I was like, I've got to have that van. So I went down, viewed it, absolutely fell in love with it, and then I sold my 1991 Escort and I bought this. Driving back was incredibly scary because the owners did warn me it had an engine misfire. They didn't quite warn me how bad it was. So a 50-mile drive took me about 4 hours because I was determined not to get it recovered. I was like, I'm going to get it home one way or another. So I ragged it all on the M25 and we got home, and as soon as I got it home, I set to work about getting the engine done and everything, and it was just a simple case of it. Where it hadn't been used in quite some time, it just needed a service, the timing done, etc. So we got that done, and as soon as that was done, the van drove perfectly. What really sold me on this van was the amount of love and attention it's had inside. I looked at quite a few different Bambis when I saw this one, and none of them had the special touches like this one's got. So, you know, you've got the curtains behind me, which have been made by the previous owner. You've got some curtains up there. Everything has been made by the previous owners to make it feel more homely. And that was what sold it to me. The fact that it's so small, but it's so compact. I mean, I've got tons of storage. I've got massive windows. And the amount of people that when they view the van, they cannot believe the size of it inside. Because you look at the outside, you're like, that is ridiculously small. But when you look in the back, it is so spacious. The only thing it doesn't have is a toilet, but I don't need that because if I go camping, there'll be facilities on site. Whenever I drive it, I always get thumbs up. I get people waving. I'm usually screaming, but it's so much fun. And, you know, when I wanted a camper van, I was going to go for something a bit generic, but this suited me more than anything else I viewed, so this is why I had to have it.
when we take a look at vehicles, we always end up spending a lot of time looking at the dash, but on this occasion we get to look inside as well. So the vehicle is a really interesting mix of things that people have updated, but there are also original features too. So we begin over here, and as you can see, this weird copper finish I thought might have been something that had been added afterwards, but is actually original to the van, as is this ceramic topped hob cooker. So you've got 2 rings to cook on. And in this cupboard up here, we've just got a selection of wiring. But something really interesting to note is that the wiring has actually been replaced at some point. And that's great, because with things like this, safety is such a paramount concern. Now, as we look under the cooker, we've got different cupboards, and that's just to store all your frying pans and bits and pieces. And as we look to the other side, you'll notice we've got this ceramic sink, which is in the same colour as the cooker, and again is another original feature of the van. Now, I believe the mirror is an aftermarket edition, and as we open this cupboard, you'll be able to see we've got a selection of handy bits and pieces. We've got plates, we've got all our washing bits and pieces, and we've got food as well. So under here we've got what looks to be 2 drawers, but actually is where a toilet would have been. Now, as we come up, you'll notice that we've got these trims on either side. Now, this wood finish here that's plastic is an original feature, and then it's just merely to hold all bottles and bits and pieces. Now, one of the things about this van as we look round is you'll probably notice that my head is touching the roof, because the roof height is actually 5 foot 3.5 inches. So in the cooker section it's higher, it's 6, I think it's 6'1", but in this section here it's 5 foot 3.5, which is my exact height, which is why my head is touching the ceiling. Something that I probably should have mentioned is that Aaron is currently on holiday, hence why we've been able to meet, because we live in very different parts of the country. So there are quite a lot of bits and pieces in here that maybe weren't in here normally. These curtains that you see in this bunting, as you can imagine, are all aftermarket features. And as we come up through the van, we've got some of these cubby holes as well. And inside here, we've got some McDonald's sauces. And as we come over to the other side, we've just got a selection of DVDs, because something that came with the van was a very small television. And that does work for you to watch DVDs on. And in essence, this is a great choice if you don't want to go for a tent. So as we look in here, you'll see there's a lot of soft furnishings. Now, originally that was designed and marketed as an area that you could put either a small child, or you could put all your soft furnishings, so it's just an extra cubby hole. These 2 seats that you see here, they fold out into beds. You can get 2 singles, or they come together to form a double. But with Aaron being well over 6 foot tall, he said that his feet do hang off the end. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of what we've got inside here. Let's flip through into the front cabin and have a look what we can see as the driver. Inside the cabin, we had all that space and ingenuity in the back, but at the front, we still know that we're in that Bedford Rascal, because up front, it's very, very basic. So just like the Metro that I so very much love, it's all that coloured plastic, which is in a nice shade of brown, and we come across, we've got our glove box here, so it just folds down like that, and you can see inside that we've got our tyre pressures written down. And as we come through to the centre of the dashboard, you can see that even the controls are very basic here as well. We've got a very, very basic heater control unit with a couple of vents situated on the front of the dash. Under that, we've got a replacement stereo and an ashtray and a cigar lighter as well, but you can probably see that ashtray needs a little bit of TLC. Now, as we look in front of us, we've got this steering wheel, which is situated in a really, really strange way, and right in front of us we have got the absolute bare basics. So we have got a speedo, a fuel gauge and a temperature gauge. I kind of thought I might get a bit more. We've also got a fog light, and well, that's pretty much it. And for those of you wondering if it's an auto or manual choke, this is a manual choke. However, despite all this simplicity up front, we do have a 5-speed gearbox. Now, something that I think is really, really weird is, and it will be to do with the fact that you've got the fridge controls here, is where the handbrake is. So the handbrake is situated in front of the gear stick, which for me is a little bit weird. Now, although in the back it feels quite well made, up front, and to be fair, Auto Body were very much responsible for everything behind these seats, it doesn't feel of the same quality. I mean, it's brilliant, and I'm looking forward to take it out for a drive, but the plastic in the front doesn't seem to match the quality that we're getting behind the back in the living areas. But then I suppose you're going to be spending more time in the back anyway. So here's the 5-speed box in action. We go up into first, down into second, across, up into third, down into fourth, and we whack it right across, up into fifth, back into neutral, and then whack across and down into reverse. And of course, it's time for the bit of the video that so many of you enjoy. What is this going to sound like on startup? So because it's really difficult for us to take the seats out, it's not just like lifting the bonnet, we are going to just show you today what it sounds like from inside the cabin and from the back as well. So we'll start the car up for you. And we'll give that a rev for you so you can hear what it sounds like. And we'll head to the back as well. Now, first of all, before we set off anywhere, I just want to tell you we are on the new microphone system. So I'm hoping that you get a much better audible experience today than we have been the past few weeks. So as we set off, we're going to set off in first gear, and I'm going to go up through the gearbox so you can hear what it sounds like. So you're going to notice that I'm going to be quiet for the next few moments. And that is us up into fourth gear, and we've done it quite quickly, so we're only sitting at 30. Now, one of the first things that really strikes me about this is what a bizarre experience it is. It's quite noisy, but I mean, that doesn't bother me because I drive old cars. But I think for somebody who's used to more modern cars, it might be a tad off-putting. So we have got the windows open because it's quite warm, but I guess you would hope that if you were going camping that it was going to be warm anyway. So I'd convinced myself that this was going to be really, really sluggish. And it's surprisingly nippy, because if you think about it, you've got all the stuff in the back that you would have with you, and there's 2 of us in the vehicle as well. You can take 3 of you in the vehicle, so you can put a small unsuspecting child in the little cabin above, but would I? There's not really that much room for them. Now, the gearbox is a little bit tighter than I would like it to be, but I think it's one of those vehicles that you just need to get your head around. I think the thing that people are probably going to ask me about as they look at this, what's it like to drive with the steering wheel where it is? So if you think about it, you're looking down to the steering wheel instead of it being in front of you. And it's not the steering wheel that bothers me, actually. It's the speedo, because I have to keep looking down at the speedo, because where we're filming today down south is absolutely littered with speed cameras, and it's a bit of a nightmare, actually. Now, if you're watching this video today, there's probably 2 reasons as to why you'd be watching. Number 1, curiosity, what's it like? And number 2, what's it actually like, and is it worth buying? Now, I would say for the money, it's a really, really good choice. We're just going to go around these cyclists, and that's another thing that I should probably mention, is that your visibility is surprisingly good. I expected it to be absolutely nigh on horrendous, but because you can open the curtain and you can see if you angle your mirror, you can use the window in the back door as essentially your rear view visibility. It's not actually that bad. I mean, it does freak me out a little bit that I've got quite a large blind spot, but other than that, it's okay. It's great. So the van averages, goodness, these cyclists, the van averages 28 miles per gallon when new, and apparently it does about 25 to 28. So it's not the most economical of vehicles, but if you're buying something like this nowadays, I imagine that you're probably buying it from, we just say hello to them. God, that's old. If you're buying it nowadays, you're probably buying it as a leisure vehicle, but back in the day, it was marketed as something you could drive 365 days of the year, because you've got this front cabin, which is taken from your Bedford, and then in the back, you've got your camping facilities. So it was billed as go to work Monday to Friday, and every weekend, you've got the perfect vehicle to escape off into the countryside with. And as a daily vehicle, I don't think it would be your best choice because of that low MPG. But as a weekend vehicle and as an extra on your driveway, I think it's a great choice, because the thing with a caravan is Yeah, look, caravans are great. They're good fun. Tents are good fun. Camping is very, very fun, especially if you're really into it. And I think this is like a really good next step up, because caravans nowadays, especially your classic caravans, seem to be going for in excess of £3,000, whereas a good example of one of these is going to cost you about the same. But in many ways, this gives you the classic vehicle and the classic caravan experience for the price of one. So I think if you were going to spend your money on one of them, I think you should really have a look at something like this. I mean, as you drive, you can see my hands are just resting on that wheel there, and you actually feel quite relaxed when you're driving it. The suspension isn't top notch, but I wouldn't expect it to be because of the age and because of the fact it is obviously based on that commercial vehicle. So I think the thing is a lot of people will say, well, do you think this is the best thing to go for if I want that classic caravanning experience? And I think there's negatives and positives to it, in that if you go for something like this, you have got the whole setup there, you've got the vehicle and you've got the camping experience. But the negatives are, number one, you are going to have to MOT it, whereas with the caravan you don't have to MOT it. And number two, so if you're a little bit taller, it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle, because as you can probably see here, I'm only 5'3", well, 5'3.5", and I already feel like I've maxed out the space, because where I'm sat is as far back as this seat will go, and my legs still feel like they're a little bit cramped. So I think if you were any taller, you might really start to struggle, which for me is the only drawback of this fantastic vehicle, because yes, you have got to MOT it, and yes, it is a little bit basic inside, but you know what, you get into it and you immediately feel like it's a fun vehicle. It's about the vibe of the vehicle, which sometimes you don't always get through the video, but as we drive it round, I don't feel like I'm having to worry. And I've kind of messed about with caravans before, and for me this is a much better offering, because it doesn't feel cold inside, everything's all contained, and it's a nice fun little vehicle that you can carry on using. So if you spend your £3,000 on the caravan, yes, you won't have to MOT it, but with this you can get so much more use out of it, because you can use it as a vehicle, and it's not massively high and it's not massively wide or massively long. So it's something that you could take to Tesco's, it's something you can take shopping, and if you go and see friends and you don't fancy sleeping on their floor, you've got everything you need in the back, and of course you can drive yourself to the event too. So in my opinion, whilst it is a bit of a weird choice to go for in terms of a classic vehicle, I absolutely love it. I think the engine bay situation is a bit of a nightmare, being under those seats, and Aaron really struggled getting those seats back in, as you can probably see in the overlay right now, and he's done it many a time before. But for me, it's been a really, really good, fun little afternoon. Now, if you're wondering what the community's like, it's probably a great time to mention the Retro Caravan Club, because the Retro Caravan Club, and if you've seen Cameron, my friend, in some of the videos, started out with his partner Chris, and it's a really great club, and they go all over Europe and the UK, and they go camping, and it's a fantastic community of caravanners, motorhomers, campers that are all taking out retro vehicles and retro tents, etc., and having a really great time. So there are a lot of plus points for buying this, and I think if you're watching this with that in mind, I would say do it, because it's really, really fun. I've had a really good day today, and I'm not always, and it might surprise some of you, I'm not always the most confident driver, and to me it gets, despite its few little niggles and drawbacks, a solid 10 out of 10, and I would recommend it to all of you. Now, I really hope you've enjoyed this video today. As usual, it's been a bonkers experience start to finish, and I hope the new mic setup has made the whole video situation a little bit easier. Now, until next time, take care and drive safely.